Right, let's cut to the chase then when it comes to tax rises now. There was a lot of speculation, wasn't there, about whether or not taxes were going to be increased, where the Labour Party actually saying this line about they're not going to raise taxes on working families. And all along, there was suspicions, Mark, that what was going to happen, she was going to pick up the box and go, didn't realise that was there, bosh, there's your tax rise. Is this what we're going to see play out?
That's certainly what the Labour government is claiming. It's not very plausible, because all of the numbers have been in the public domain forever. There's no hidden book behind the number 10 or number 11 sofa in which they've suddenly found a new number. Paul Johnson from the incredibly neutral middle-of-the-road Institute for Fiscal Studies this morning was saying, sorry, all the numbers are in the public domain. They have been for months. Rachel Reeves is claiming there is a £20 billion black hole in the public finances. Michelle, I've got news for you and for Rachel Reeves. It is far worse than that. The overall debt position of the UK is something like £7 trillion, 7,000 billion. She's just measuring what is the budget against the OBR's forecast this year. This would be a bit like me worrying that I'd lost a pound coin behind the back of the sofa while I was 100 grand overdrawn at the bank. So she's talking about the pound coin she's lost behind the sofa. We are colossally overdrawn. Public spending is going to have to fall. And our politicians have got to admit it. And, Michelle, you ask about the tax rate. So I'm sure there'll be one, but I don't think they can raise any more in tax. We are taxing to the max already. But
then do you concede, then, that the Tories have left the economy in a diabolical state?
Yes.
Good. That was easy. Paul Embery, do you reckon we're heading for tax cuts? Tax rises, actually, not tax cuts.
They should be honest about it. The country needs massive investment. We're an undeveloping country. The NHS is failing. People can't get in to see their GP or their dentist. We've got a housing crisis. And it needs remedying, and it needs remedying by governments stepping up to the plate and spending money.
But, Paul, we've done that on the NHS for years now.
But it also needs reform. The NHS also needs reform.
We've been throwing money at it for years.
I appreciate
the Conservatives threw tons of money at it.
I appreciate that the NHS also needs reform, but it also needs money. And the truth is, Mark, as I've said on this show many times, we are a rich country. We are not a poor country. The problem is too much wealth is concentrated in too few hands. When you live in a country where the richest 5 families have got as much wealth as the poorest 20%, or more wealth, actually, than the poorest 20% of the population, and the gap between rich and poor continues widening to the point where we have got very appalling wealth and income inequality. Now, you would say, I know, well, that's fine. Let the rich get as rich as they possibly want to. Let's encourage them. Low taxes, low regulation. They'll become billionaires, and some of that wealth will eventually trickle down to people.
No, it won't trickle down because Paul, more and more of them are leaving. Well, more millionaires are leaving Britain per capita than any other country in the world.
The point is, well, many people on your side of politics
doesn't need to trickle down. You're taxing them.
Do say that. They say they believe in the trickle down theory.
No, nobody. I can't think of an economist who really believes in trickle down.
The only way in reality that you close the gap between rich and poor is by the government intervening and seeking to redistribute wealth.
I'm not talking about. Hang on, we've tested this to death.
I'm not talking about punitive taxation.
Well, it's pretty goddamn punitive.
Actually, we are not overtaxed in this country compared to international standards.
The top 1% pay 25%.
Our tax burden, Mark, is lower than a lot of countries.
38% overall.
It's still lower. It's slightly higher than normal by historical standards in Britain.
The highest
but actually
it's been in our lifetime.
Lower than many European countries.
Yeah, but hang on, Paul. You've got to parcel this out. The total tax burden could go up. We could charge people more for buying a pint of beer or buying something in a shop. Your argument was about making the tax burden on the rich higher. The rich, not the general base of tax.
It'd be a start.
Well, the top 1% of income earners pay about a quarter of income tax. The top 10% pay more than half.
It's more than that. The top 1% pay 30% of all income.
There you go. And the top 10% pay more than a half.
They pay 60%, yeah.
What thanks do they get? These people should have blue plaques on walls.
Play me the world's smallest violin, Mark.
These shouldn't be the smallest, because they're leaving Britain because of this treatment.
Well, so they're holding the country to ransom, aren't they?
No, they're just leaving.
Yeah, well, exactly. They're holding the country to ransom.
There's no ransom. They're just exiting.
Unless the government does what we want as rich people with the ability to be able to exert influence through our power, through our wealth on democratically elected governments, unless that government do what we want, we're going to upset.
No, they're not saying that, Paul. They're just quietly walking out.
I've said on this show many times, when people at the other end of the scale do that, Mark. When a trade unionist in the public sector goes on strike and says, actually, because of the cost of living, I need more wages, and if you don't give them to me, I'm going to take strike action. They're always condemned as holding the country to ransom. But the people at the top who have got an enormous amount of wealth, whenever they threaten to disrupt the country...
No, but hang on, so this...
let me finish. And to disrupt the economy, you say... We have to indulge these people. They're leaving the country.
I'm not saying
we have to give these people what they want. They're the most important people.
Fortunately, we don't...
If every rich person, Mark, fell under a bus tomorrow, society in Britain would still function because the people teaching the kids in the schools, the people sweeping the roads, the people driving the buses, the people walking the streets, police officers walking the beat will still be doing their productive work. But if every public sector worker fell under a bus tomorrow, society would come to a grinding halt.
But neither of those are going to happen. There's not that many buses that people can fall under.
But I'm explaining the difference between the value of people in society.
We agree that we would like more millionaires and billionaires in Britain, not fewer.
No, I don't want more billionaires.
You don't want more billionaires?
I don't want more billionaires.
You don't want Elon Musk to come over and open factories?
I don't want...
You don't want millionaires to stay here? And by the way, when the millionaires leave, they're not holding anybody to ransom.
I'm not...
They're just leaving.
I'm not
when the trade unions go on strike, they want more of my money. No millionaire has ever left this country and demanded more of my money.
But you presumably then, Mark, you don't use public services, you don't use the roads.
Of course I do.
You don't use the roads. You've never used your GP surgery.
You accept people should be able to leave the country voluntarily.
I'm not saying people shouldn't be able to leave the country voluntarily. But my point is...
This is going to affect your tax burden.
Let them go. If the rich...
Your tax receipts are going to fall.
If the rich... Well, actually, if the rich are prepared to say to democratically elected governments, unless you do what we want, then we will up sticks and leave. Then you've got two choices as a government. You say, actually, we need to indulge these people because we want their taxes. Or you say, actually, we cannot be held to ransom in that way. We want to create a fairer society. We want to rebalance the economy in favour of working people. We want to see redistribution of wealth. And if that means that some of these people are going to have to go, then
there's no ransom.
We survived before they came along.
We will survive. We will survive. But if we could attract more millionaires and billionaires to these shores...
By doing everything they want.
But not everything they want to make it attract. I want more billionaires to come to Britain. And then we can tax them, not punitively, but reasonably. Then we'll have more in the public accounts, and then we can actually do better things.
And it will all trickle down to people...
It's not trickle down, it's literally confiscation. That's what tax is. If you're earning £1 million a year, we will tax you near as damn it half of it. It's not trickle down, it goes straight to your socialist government.
These Thatcherite arguments, this kind of Reaganomics, that it's all about the supply side, it's
about tax revenue.
It's all about encouraging businesses, and it's all about giving rich people effectively what they want, rolling back the frontiers of the state, letting people get filthy
most rich people don't want to hand over half of their income.
It doesn't work. It didn't work in the UK in the 80s. It didn't work in America.
So what are you saying to the top 1% of earners who, as Michelle points out, contribute 30% of income tax receipts? You can say thank you?
Well, in absolute terms, of course. I'm not suggesting...
thanks would be nice.
I'm not suggesting that that's a trifling amount, but in terms of their own...
Thank you for your great contribution to society. Thank you for all the doctors and nurses and teachers you pay for. Thank you for all the welfare you pay for.
In terms of their overall wealth, actually, it's not a huge amount that they're paying out of
a third? Nearest down a third.
As billionaires, they are still...
Not billionaires, the top 1% of earners.
Fine, but as billionaires or millionaires, they are still
millionaires, people earning, say, 200 grand a year.
And I think there is plenty of scope when you look at the wealth that is within the country and the fact that it's concentrated in too few hands. I think there's plenty of scope for saying, actually, we could raise it.
Do you think we should offer them a bit of thanks for their huge contribution to the public exchequer?
Why would we thank a millionaire or a billionaire?
Not a millionaire or a billionaire.
For paying his or her taxes. Would you thank a cleaner on the minimum wage?
Yes, I do.
Right,
I always thank a cleaner once they've cleaned the office. Yeah,
that's fine. That's fine. And I'm willing to thank a billionaire.
But in terms of bangs for your bucks, if you're earning big money here, not only are you probably helping the economy through what you're doing, you are contributing enormously to the welfare state, the NHS,
Can I
the
just bring
education
some
system.
stats into this? I want to bring some stats. Right, the average public spend across the UK per head is £12,500. Right, so for each and every one of us, that's the average public spending. Someone on a salary of, let's just say, about roughly about £37,000. They pay about £7,000 or so. So they're not washing their face, they're not paying, they're not putting into the system what they're receiving. Someone that earns about 150 grand spends about £60,000 on tax. So they're paying for about 5 people. So your worker on £150 is paying the way of 5 individuals. And you've got to be realistic about this, Paul. That person is probably going to privately educate their children. They're probably going to have private health. When you start earning more money, so let's just say you're on about, I don't know, 350, well, I'm just picking figures out my thin air, you get not a penny personal allowance. So you're not allowed to earn a penny tax-free. You lose child benefit. You get no child benefit. You get no free childcare. Your pensional amount when it comes to tax benefits becomes so negligible, it's laughable. How much more do you think that those people should have to pay?
I'm not arguing that we should confiscate the entire wealth of those people. I'm simply saying that when you look at the wealth and income divide in this country, and you look at where wealth is concentrated, and you actually look at the fact that we are still a rich country, but the wealth is in too few hands. My argument is that there's more scope for taking some more from the very rich within society.
But can I just say this as well? Someone on 150 grand there or thereabouts is paying the way of about 5 people. How much more do you expect them to pick up the tab for?
But it's not just about individuals. It's about things like the banks that have made record profits over the last couple of years out of the interest rate rises, record unexpected profits. There's clearly, I think, an indisputable case for a windfall tax on the banks for their unexpected excess profits, as well as a wealth tax.
Nonsense.
There's a case for equalising capital gains tax. There's a case for getting rid of...
There's already a tax on profits, Paul.
What?
To income tax rates.
Oh, I mean, give me a break.
That's even more.
Let me just be clear, because I need to go to break. I'm over a minute over my time. But anyone... Right.
VAT exemption on financial services.
I'm going to come back to you about this lunacy that people say about equalising capital gains and income tax. I can't control myself.